Our speaker is Ian Skoggard from Human Relations Area Files at Yale University, United States. Today, he presents his talk on the topic, Love Motifs in Taino and Pueblo Art.
Hello, my name is Ian Skoggard, and I am recently retired from the Human Relations Area Files at Yale University. My talk today is Love Motifs in Taino and Pueblo Art. This paper is a continuation of my study of sexual imagery found in some cultural artifacts, specifically the imagery of combined male and female genitalia. Such imagery was noted by the Canadian anthropologist Wilson Duff, who studied the art of Northwest Coast Canada. He referred to such sexual images as vulvic phallic images, which I argue is an expression of sexual intimacy and love. I would like to begin my talk with a few ground rules. The philosopher L.A. Paul writes about what she calls transformative experiences. By that she means experiences which are impossible to anticipate or know fully beforehand. One example she gives is giving birth to her first child. Despite the many books she read about childbirth, none were able to convey to her what she ultimately experienced. Words fell short. The subjective component of such an experience cannot be fully described. I think we can say the same thing about lovemaking, in which one experiences indescribable joy. Words by themselves cannot create such joy. However, once experienced, words can evoke memories of that experience. Anthropologist Jean-Baptiste Petier argues that the memories of prior personal experience give sense and meaning to words, and it is a shared experience that makes communication possible. The next rule is from psychological anthropologist Geza Roham, who writes that good feelings make good objects. The feelings he referred to were sexual, and the objects were ritual artifacts. Finally, the last rule is from the anthropologist Walter Goldschmidt, who writes that rituals are the language of sentiment and a second mode of communication. So what I want to say here is that ritual objects or art can powerfully evoke shared lived experiences. The sensual intimacy of lovemaking being one of these experiences, and that these feelings can be indexed and communicated through symbols. I also have some caveats. The first caveat is that I am not talking about Jungian archetypes, that is, universal symbols found across all cultures. Rather, the images and symbols I discuss regarding love vary in their historical and geographical contexts, wherein they can take on many forms, ranging from utilitarian objects to religious art. The next caveat is from anthropologist Victor Turner, who talks about key symbols as multivocal. That is, they can carry many meanings and speak to many levels of experience and knowledge, including the sensual, social, and sacred. Their power lies in connecting these multiple symbols and realms into one symbol. Finally, Canadian anthropologist Wilson Duff said that nothing comes in pieces, by which he meant that artistic designs and images have deep meanings, invoking the taboo realms of the sacred and sexual, realms that are often overlooked or avoided in more conventional discussions of art. These are some of the objects I talked about in my paper presented at the first conference of love studies. From left to right, they are a Turkana milk jug from northwest Kenya, an Aranda bull roarer from central Australia, and a Haida raven rattle from the northwest coast Canada. Ethnographers writing about each object allude to their sexual imagery and combined forms of male and female genitalia. These images are also multivocal, that besides their central component, they carry other references and meanings. For example, the Turkana milk jug represents the lineage and clan of the Turkana. The male and female forms inscribed on the Australian bull roarer have mythological and geographical references as well. And the raven rattle recalls the Haida creation myth in which a shaman receives esoteric knowledge from a mythical bird. In this next part of my presentation, I discuss two more kinds of cultural artifacts: Taino stone sculptures and Pueblo pottery. The Taino were a Caribbean culture centered on the islands of Puerto Rico and Santo Domingo, modern-day Dominican Republic and Haiti, and extending across the Caribbean region in the period between 800 and 1550 AD. The stone zemis are the most famous and unique art forms of the Taino. The word zemi refers to the three-cornered form of the sculptures. The earliest zemis were made from conch shells with their hollow volvic interior and conic phallic exterior. The images in this slide are of different types of stone zemis. In the upper left-hand corner is the dual snake zemi with mammiform shape. The snake is a male symbol associated with the supreme male god Yakahu, who is the god of fertility, the sky, and cassava, the staple crop of the Taino. The double-headed snake shown here is also a symbol of the Milky Way. Various dualities are symbolized in this one zemi: male, female, earth, sky, breast, penis. Below it is another mammiform zemi with a human face on one side and incised design symbolizing water and bird heads, which I will talk about more later. In the upper right-hand corner is another zemi of the god Yakahu, in this case showing the actual head and face of the god. This zemi sculpture is more pointed and phallic in overall shape, and the back of the head is also inscribed with the interlocking bird head motifs. The zemi on the bottom right is a fully formed head replacing the mammary and phallic forms, but perhaps still invoking them as well in one blissed out persona. The inscriptions of bird heads remain on the cheek, bones, and top of the skull. Some of the incised design motifs found on Taino sculptures are interlocking bird heads. According to the archaeologist Larry Roberts, this motif has ancient roots. For example, here are some interlocking bird head design motifs found in Olmec culture from Mesoamerica and the Barrancoid culture from the region of present-day Venezuela. The northern coastal South America and eastern Mexico, together with the Caribbean, formed a social field in which there was no doubt extensive trade and migration, including artisans, which can account for the dispersal of such designs. I argue that this interlocking bird head motif is an expression of sexual intimacy, evoking the feelings such intimacy arouses. The motif is an abstraction, but its meaning known to the artisan and any other members of the culture privy to that knowledge. Here are examples of Pueblo pottery from the American Southwest with the interlocking bird head motifs. There is an historical connection between Mesoamerica and the American Southwest. Again, part of the same cultural area and social field of trade and migration that included the Caribbean. Here is a sequence of Pueblo pots showing the interlocking bird motif in greater degrees of abstraction from left to right. The piece on the left is a contemporary piece by Pueblo artist Rainy Naha called Tumbling Parrots. It is the most natural of the 4 designs shown. The 2 pots in the middle are more abstract examples of the motif, with the wing feathers and heads of the birds still discernible. Both pots are by 20th century Pueblo artists. The pot on the far right is actually an ancestral artifact from the pre-contact period, but with the feathers still visible. The anthropologists Scott Ortman and Joseph Traugott, in a recent book about ancestral Pueblo pottery, write about the aesthetic effects of the Pueblo design motifs. They do not attempt to interpret their symbolism. They refer to this particular design as a pronged motif. They do not see interlocking bird heads and plumages. However, they do understand the aesthetic element as dualistic. According to them, dualism is a core orientation of Pueblo philosophy and design, and religion, excuse me. They quote scholar Rena Swenzel, who wrote, "The modern Pueblo people consider opposites as essential to life because it is through the interaction of opposites that regeneration and continuation, life itself, happens." Ortman and Traugott see in Pueblo design the opposites of light and dark, which produce optical reversal through isometric designs. They regard the motif design as visually active, in which the foreground and background are continually shifting, creating a shimmering effect. I would add that it is an aesthetic rendition of love in which opposites oscillate, one and then the other, both in an act of lovemaking and the act of creation. I ended my talk at last year's Love Study Conference with this photo of Leonardo da Vinci's famous Mona Lisa and suggested it depicted post-coital bliss. However, looking at it now, I also see in the enigma of her smile as oscillating between 2 different expressions. The eyes, too, express 2 different emotions. Does it express love? I think so. In any case, I hope this paper has made you appreciate more the power of symbols that tap into shared experiences, in this case, love. Also, I would like to end this talk with a recommendation to art scholars and historians to consider love in their interpretations and analyses. Love is part of the equation, or can be a lens to interpret our art. Reciprocally, love scholars can reflect on art for insights into the many feelings and meanings of love. So my 3 takeaways are: 1, symbols that evoke shared transformative experiences are powerful, whether they be childbirth or lovemaking. 2, art has much to teach us about love. And 3, love has much to teach us about art. Thank you for watching this presentation. Here are my references.